The other day, a thought crossed my mind. If both people who have become crazy fluent in European Portuguese and people who have given up on their Portuguese tend to start with Duolingo, is Duolingo bad per se? And more importantly, are there advantages to your European Portuguese in starting there? That's what I'll discuss today. Olá, eu sou Catarina, a Portuguese polyglot, helping you here at the Language Unschool find your voice in European Portuguese. Today with Duolingo. Who knew? I never thought I would ever say that. When I hear about someone learning European Portuguese with Duolingo, which is Brazilian Portuguese, I either go, again? Or I feel slightly frustrated because there are more options these days which cater for European Portuguese specifically. Yes, it's the same language, but there are plenty of differences between the two variants. Some of you may know I am currently learning Hungarian. Just an excuse to better help my unschoolers within my online program, Portuguese à l'Unschooling. When I started, I did try Duolingo, but I dropped it soon after. I'm not a big fan of apps to learn languages. Believe me, I've tried. At some point, I found a teacher who uses comprehensible input, and it was going really well. I was enjoying her lessons, the stories she was coming up with, until the day she sent me this homework. Catarina, please try Duolingo, as I'd like to know if I should suggest it to my own students. I wanted to cry. But instead, I buckled up and reinstalled the app on my phone. I did as I was told and reported back to her my findings. Number 1, yes, you learn basic vocabulary, not in an engaging and definitely not in the most effective way, but again, that's my taste. It works for some people. Number 2, the whole streak thing stressed me out quite a bit, to be honest, which is funny because that's why most people persevere within the app. Number 3, it was so boring to me that I didn't get to the good part. That actually helps you learn something, but more on that in a little bit. Number 4, it was that feeling of utter boredom that made me drop it before it got any good. Now I must say the ads were a massive contributing factor for me dropping out. I could complete a lesson faster than the ad would play. I know the free version is a way to get people to upgrade to the paid one, but if a lot of people use Duolingo because it's free, please do let me know how you put up with the ads. There's space in the comments for that. Now then the other day, I remember Prapti, my most fluent unschooler, that she said she herself had started with Duolingo. But that wasn't it. I remembered in a conversation, I was teasing her about it, and she mentioned she had read all the stories in Duolingo, implying the stories had been helpful for her. And I was like, which stories? I didn't see any stories. Only isolated words and fill in the blanks and match boring exercises. So what did I do? I googled Duolingo stories, and this is what I found. A selection of short dialogues in 16 languages, including Portuguese. And Hungarian too, if you must know. That are actually funny. I'll say that again. These stories are funny. I was not expecting it. And in case you're unaware, research, modern times, and experience, even old times, says we learn best when we're having fun. And what's more, stories play a massive role in it. Which is precisely why my unschoolers go from Portuguese equals noise to I'm not only understanding things around me a lot more, but I'm also having spontaneous conversations. Some more complex than others, but hey. Now back to the Duolingo stories. I was tempted to start with a Hungarian version of the stories, but then I thought of you first. Yes, so I went first for the Portuguese version, and I was shocked. Pleasantly surprised that the audio was in European Portuguese. What else could I want? I mean you. Now, well, the option to hover over each word to check its meaning, check. Some check-ins here and there to aid comprehension, check. Some match, fill in the blanks, word order exercises, not something I would want, but hey, Duolingo is just being true to itself. Nothing wrong with that. So, still gets a check. And sure, there were some issues with gender. O sanduíche is Portugal, is feminine, é sanduíche, and some other discrepancies regarding grammar and vocabulary. Nothing massive, no harm done. So then I tried the same story but in Hungarian, which reinforced a few things I already knew. Not bad, Duolingo. I was not expecting that. And not bad me for seeking opportunities in the most unlikely places. So important when you're learning a language. Now, can you get these stories within Duolingo? I confess I tried taking the normal route and learned Portuguese, yes, my own mother tongue, on Duolingo itself, so that I would get to the stories, but I simply lost my patience. It didn't allow me to advance at my own pace, so I relied on this website to make this video, which means I can't guarantee these stories are exactly the same as in the app, nor whether this website is legit and will be functioning forever. Still, I definitely recommend the stories more than the app itself. They even have an app actually, the stories thing, so look it up. But even if you work with the app, the Duolingo app, I mean, because you like the structure, which makes perfect sense, my question is, are there any advantages on learning European Portuguese when you're moving to or already living in Portugal? Well, actually there are. Plenty. I honestly think understanding specific Brazilian Portuguese vocabulary, pronunciation, and grammar differences is something that makes perfect sense when your European Portuguese is more advanced. However, you are bound to stumble upon it online when searching for resources, courses, or whatnot when you're starting out. Still, that's not the main reason why becoming familiar with Brazilian Portuguese matters when you live in Portugal. It shouldn't come as a surprise that there has always been Brazilian immigration to Portugal. It's a fact. In the last few years, however, the move of Brazilians to Portugal has increased significantly, and what that means to you, Portuguese language learner, is that you will be exposed to a lot of Brazilian Portuguese in shops, in restaurants, services, etc. Now, a less obvious fact is the phenomenon of children these days having access to smartphones and tablets, computers, and whatnot, who will search for things online in Portuguese naturally, especially if they're younger. And when you do search online in Portuguese, guess what happens? You're bound to find first 10 or more Brazilian results before you see a Portuguese from Portugal one. Unless you know how to search. Oh well, there are tricks. If you're around kids these days, you will hear them saying Brazilian funk instead of Michael Jackson. Speak with a Brazilian accent here and there, sprinkled with Brazilian words. I, on the other hand, grew up watching Disney films dubbed in Brazilian Portuguese up until The Lion King, hence why I don't like it. On weekend mornings, that's what I would do on weekend mornings. Watching Brazilian soap operas during weekdays at night, very instructional, how do you say that? And listening to Caetano Veloso and Simply Red in between. It was probably a lot, but it was limited because it happened on TV. Actually, we also played soaps at school as a game during recess, but anyway, another story for another day. So I'm thinking, if you keep clinging to your Duolingo streak, you will, in about 10 or 20 years, be surrounded by Brazilian Portuguese speaking Portuguese people in your beloved, safe and sunny Portugal. Espetáculo! I'll repeat that. You'll be surrounded in 10 or 20 years by Brazilian Portuguese speaking Portuguese people in your beloved, safe and sunny Portugal. Think about that. Okay, I hope you will start using Duolingo more wisely from now on, but don't give up on focusing on European Portuguese just yet. It makes more chronological sense, and you might avoid getting muddled up with the two variants while dealing with cultural shock and the occasional unpromised rainfall. Now, it seems only reasonable I would tell you how to find your voice in European Portuguese, and this video explains a bit how. Obrigada por verem, obrigada por me ouvirem. Até à próxima.